All right, let's get right into it. We're about to unpack one of the most incredible, most world-changing stories in all of human history, the rise of the Mongol Empire. I mean, how does a scattered collection of nomadic tribes, basically the underdogs of their world, suddenly explode onto the scene and build the largest land empire the world has ever known? It almost sounds like fiction. You know, our story starts not with a huge battle, but with this kind of eerie, haunting silence. Imagine you're the great traveler Ibn Battuta back in the 1330s. You're journeying along the legendary Silk Road, expecting to see these magnificent cities you've heard so much about, Bukhara, Samarkand. But when you get there, you find nothing. Just hollowed out shells. These great centers of culture and trade are just gone. He even described one city, Balkh, as being completely dilapidated and uninhabited. I mean, really think about that for a second. Entire cities, once home to hundreds of thousands of people, are now ghost towns. We're talking about a level of destruction so absolute that 100 years later, the region still hadn't recovered. So the question is, what kind of power, what kind of force, could possibly do something like this? And the answer was a name that would echo through the centuries, inspiring both terror and, believe it or not, awe: the Mongols. But to really get how they completely reshaped the world, we have to first understand the world that created them. So let's travel to their home. We're talking about the Eurasian steppe, which is literally the biggest grassland on the planet. It is a massive, wide open, and pretty harsh place. And an environment like this, well, it doesn't create cities with walls. It creates an entirely different kind of human society, one built for one thing above all else: constant movement. And this is the absolute key to understanding them. While civilizations in, say, China or Persia were building cities and farming land, the people of the steppe were living in these felt tents called gurs. They could pack up their entire life and move it in less than a day. Their wealth wasn't land, it was their animals, their horses, their sheep. And their history wasn't written down, it was sung, passed down in epic poems around the fire. It's a completely different way of seeing the world. And that lifestyle gave them this incredible military toolkit. First, obviously, the horse. It gave them speed nobody could match. Then you have the composite bow. This thing was a masterpiece of engineering. It was small enough to be fired easily from the saddle, but so powerful it could outrange pretty much any other bow on the battlefield. And then the final piece of the puzzle, the stirrup. It sounds simple, right? But the stirrup was a game changer. It turned a horse rider into a stable mobile weapons platform. You could literally stand up in the stirrups and fire that powerful bow with unbelievable accuracy and force. For hundreds of years, these steppe tribes were just a fractured mess, constantly fighting each other. A threat to their neighbors, sure, but a manageable one. But that all changed. And it changed because of one person. Not a king, not a prince, but an outcast boy born into the worst possible circumstances. A boy named Temujin. Now look at this timeline. It's not just a list of bad things that happened to a kid. This is the blueprint for his entire life's work. Every single one of these tragedies would directly shape the man he became and the empire he built. His dad is murdered when he's just 9. The very next year, his own clan abandons him and his family, leaving them to starve. He gets captured, enslaved, forced to wear this humiliating wooden collar. He finally escapes, gets married, and then his wife is immediately kidnapped by a rival tribe. It was just a relentless cycle of betrayal, loss, and survival. And this quote? Wow, it just cuts right to the bone. To keep the rest of the family from starving, Temujin and his brother actually killed their older half-brother over a scrap of food, and his mother was just horrified. But for Temujin, this was the ultimate lesson. In his world, the old rules didn't apply. Family bonds could snap. The only thing that guaranteed survival was absolute unity, enforced by pure, unrelenting strength. So you can see how this all starts to build into something revolutionary. Temujin didn't just want to survive the chaos anymore. He wanted to destroy the system of chaos itself. And to do that, he had to basically light the old rulebook of steppe politics on fire. This right here was one of his most radical ideas. See, traditionally, after a raid, all the good stuff went to the nobles. Temujin said no more. Loot was going to be shared based on how well you fought, not who your dad was. And where loyalty was always about what clan you were from, he promoted people based on their skill and their loyalty to him. This was brilliant. It inspired this fierce, undying loyalty from thousands of warriors who had always been on the bottom rung of society. But you know, his rise wasn't some straight shot to the top. His biggest rival was his own childhood best friend, his blood brother, Jamuka.
And in their first big showdown, Jamuka absolutely crushed him. He even boiled 70 of Temujin's captured allies alive. Temujin was forced into hiding for a decade, but he didn't give up. He came back, he rebuilt, and he took down every single one of his rivals, one by one, until only Jamuka was left.
So now, with all his enemies gone, Temujin wasn't just a warlord anymore. He started acting like a nation builder. He started out to create something totally new, a unified state, an empire without a single city. You could call it an empire of grass. And in the year 1206, all the tribes gathered for a great meeting, a Kurultai, and there they gave him a new name. He was no longer Temujin, the outcast. He was now Chinggis Khan, a title that meant something like oceanic ruler, the universal emperor of all the people of the steppe. Okay, so the thing is, to keep this new nation from falling back into the same old cycle of feuds, he needed a new set of rules for everybody. So he created the Yasa, the Great Law. This was a single legal code that replaced all the old conflicting tribal customs with one unified system of justice that applied to everyone. And just look at these laws. Every single one is a direct echo of his own past. Remembering his wife, Borte, being stolen, he outlawed the kidnapping of women. Remembering that wooden collar, he banned the enslavement of any Mongol by another. He even created protections for all religions, which was an incredibly pragmatic move to keep religious strife from tearing his new empire apart from the inside.
But here's the thing about an empire built by warriors. It needs a common enemy to stay focused. And Chinggis Khan knew this better than anyone. So he turned his gaze south, toward the rich, ancient, and what seemed like an absolutely unbeatable civilization, the Jin dynasty of northern China.
And this is the moment the world changed forever. The Jin emperor sent a message demanding that the Mongols pay tribute, which was standard practice. Everyone was supposed to bow to the emperor. But Chinggis Khan, now the ruler of the entire steppe, just wasn't having it. He asked about the new emperor, and when he heard it was a man he didn't respect, he turned south toward China, spat on the ground, and said this. It was an absolute total declaration of war.
On paper, the Jin should have won easily. They had massive armies, huge fortified cities, but the Mongols, they just didn't play by the rules. They used deception, like tying branches to their horses' tails to kick up huge dust clouds and make their army seem way bigger than it was. Their speed was a weapon in itself. And they were masters of psychological warfare. They'd offer a city a choice. Surrender now and we'll spare you. But if you resist, we will kill every last man, woman, and child. And they meant it.
And this brings us right back to where we started. The war against the Jin was nothing short of apocalyptic. When their capital city finally fell, the slaughter was so immense that years later, a visiting diplomat saw what he thought was a snowy white hill in the distance. When he got closer, someone told him, no, the whole of it is the bones of men slain. The mystery of Ibn Battuta's ruined cities wasn't a mystery at all. This was the terrifying, world-breaking power that Chinggis Khan had unleashed. So this is the great paradox of the Mongols, isn't it? On one hand, their conquests were unbelievably brutal. Millions died. But on the other hand, by uniting East and West under one rule, they created this period of relative peace called the Pax Mongolia, a time of incredible trade and exchange of ideas and technology. They built a new world on the ashes of the old one. And that leaves us with this really tough question to wrestle with. Was the cost worth the consequence?